So the Free Press PR campaign is interesting. They started this fairly recently, and if you don't know about hashtag Free Press, what they're doing is all of corporate media is getting together and they're doing this PR campaign based off of Donald Trump's attacks on them. So, Donald Trump's constantly saying fake news, don't trust the media, just left and right, discrediting media. And there's, some legitimacy to that, but also it's really bad, right? So they've gotten together and done this free press campaign. I'm going to show you guys what that Twitter feed looks like right now, because literally it's every single corporate outlet, everything. They're all getting together doing hashtag free press, and they are riding this ride. Constitution, First Amendment, free press is a pity your oath meant so little as you blah blah blah. Jameson, editorial spearheaded by Boston Globe. Traitor, traitor, Putin wants America in its most vulnerable position. I'm sure you guys are aware of like the whole Russia stuff, have seen our Russia videos, our Russiagate, and if you don't follow Jimmy Dore on that stuff, you should too. And of course, this dude, entrepreneur, civil rights activist, co-founder and partner of We Are So's. He has all of these corporate outlets, these corporate journalists, and then free press. So as you can see, as I'm scrolling, this is very much a coordinated campaign, PR campaign. And they're just rolling with it. Let's talk about why the free press may not actually be free. First of all, okay, 6 corporations own our media. Okay? 6 corporations. And it was about to go down to 5 when Disney was going to buy out Fox, I believe. But very little, there's hardly any diversity in our media. 6 corporations push out 90% of our media. 15 billionaires are also in on this. We know Jeff Bezos of Amazon owns Washington Post. And the other day, down here in Houston, a reporter from the Washington Post came down to report on some racism stuff that happened that I talk about in one of the past videos. And I asked this Washington Post journalist, I was like, hey, how do you feel about Amazon owning your paper? I go straight to it. And he was like, well, they don't technically own our paper. It's a stakeholder, a subsidiary, blah, blah, blah. It's basically corporate tentacles, right? So a corporate tentacle, this is a Samantha thing, this is a Sam thing, this is something I've entirely come up with because corporate tentacles are a real thing. The corporate tentacles is when a corporation finds other ways to own different things, right? But they're trying to hide behind it. So, like in all technicalities, Amazon may not directly own Washington Post, but they have a corporate tentacle aligning themselves with Washington Post. Okay? And that's what this dude was trying to tell me. He was like, well, we don't technically, blah, blah, blah. So this Washington Post journalist continues. He's like, well, also, it's been great for the paper because it's giving us a real financial backing. We're able to hire more reporters. We're able to put more people out in the field. As you can see, I'm here in Houston when I should be in my hometown. There's more financial backing. And I was like, okay, well that's cool. That's cool. Are there any cons? They took away our pensions. Okay, they took away our pensions. This is what he literally tells me. So on one hand, he's like, oh, well, Amazon, ever so not technically owning our paper, has been great because we've had some really good financial backing. But, on the other hand, they've taken away our pensions. Like, do we not see the irony there? Like, uh, and I just looked at him. I was like, oh, all right. and, and he had more of a roundabout way of saying this. So whenever he said, financial backing, he talked for like 2, 3, 5 minutes probably before he got to the pensions thing. And it was just hilarious. It was like, wow, you are really disconnected. But anyway, where were we? So up next, it's the continuation of this whole issue with corporate media owning too much of what we consume and this free press. They keep saying free press as if, like, they're completely under attack, but they're their own propaganda machines. So we're going to take a look at this handy dandy spreadsheet. Who owns the media? Here's the parent company. This is for broadcasting TV, as you can see down here. Sinclair, Nexstar, Gray Television, Raycom, Ion. Okay, so it's more than 6. Hearst Corporation owns one of my local newspapers. Walt Disney Company. This has come from over here. Free press, media. Who owns the media? Massive corporations dominate the U.S. media landscape. These interactive charts, the one I just showed you, reveals who owns what. Over here, like I was talking about earlier, these 15 billionaires own America's news media companies. This is from Forbes. And this is 2016, so still fairly recent. We have Michael Bloomberg, of Bloomberg and Bloomberg Media, the richest billionaire in the media business, Rupert Murdoch, News Corp, Donald and Samuel C. Newhouse, Advanced Publications, the Cox family, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Jeff Bezos, The Washington Post, bought the Washington Post for $250 million in 2013. So, isn't that great? John Henry, the Boston Globe, Sheldon Adelson, the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And it cracks me up. So I'm going through this, and this is, oh, look, there's another billionaire who owns the New York Times. The issue with billionaires owning so much of our media is that they can create class propaganda, right? So every time we hear them try to refute Medicare for all, or they're like, your progressive movement isn't working, this is class propaganda. We see a lot of these corporate outlets also talk about why we don't need minimum wage. And on top of that, instead of, they have the people and they have the resources to cover every single injustice and silent emergency across the United States. Every single one. But what do they talk about? They talk about Trump. They talk about Russia. They have debates amongst each other. Fox News has been caught putting up fake, intelligence community people. And don't forget, speaking of which, Anderson Cooper used to work for intelligence community. Isn't that great? So, we see all these different ways that they can propagate class propaganda, and that's what they're there for. I mean, right? NBC Universal executive hosts fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. So this is where we start to see the overlap. TV pundits praise Hillary Clinton on air, fail to disclose financial ties to her campaign. Tune into television coverage of the presidential campaign and undoubtedly you will hear from various pundits described as former campaign strategists and political contributors explaining the latest developments of the race. But in many cases, these pundits, though introduced as neutral experts on campaigns or party politics, in fact have financial ties to the candidates they praise on air. Journalism 101 teaches that reporters and TV news hosts most probably identify their sources and analysts. We reached out to NBC, CBS, CNN, and ABC News, but we did not hear back. Again, do we see what I mean when I say class propaganda? And I go back to that too because one of the biggest fights in 2016 was that Hillary represented the corporations, right? The corporations, the greedy people who want to suck the life through corporate tentacles out of people. That's bipartisan at this point. And we continue to see this in the media. So for the media to act like they're the victim in this whole free press PR campaign is pretty comical. It's hilarious, actually, because Donald Trump is attacking them, trying to ruin their credibility, but for some of them, their credibility is already shot. Now, is it to say that Donald Trump doesn't need to be held accountable? Yes. I am not saying that he doesn't need to be not held accountable, because he does. But, you know, for things that are correct, that we have proof for, maybe.